$3. That is all a TEC1 12706 thermoelectric module costs on Amazon or AliExpress right now. $3.89 to be precise, with free shipping. And with that chip of bismuth telluride semiconductor sandwiched between two ceramic plates no larger than a playing card, you can generate electricity from any heat source you already have. Your wood stove, your campfire, the exhaust of a generator, a candle, indefinitely, for as long as heat and cold exist in the same universe, which is to say, forever. This is not a novelty. This is not a trick. This is the Seebeck effect, a physical law of the universe first documented in 1821 by German physicist Thomas Johann Seebeck, published in the Annals of Physics of the Berlin Academy of Sciences. Seebeck demonstrated that when two dissimilar conducting materials are joined at a point, and one side is made hotter than the other, a voltage appears across the junction. No combustion, no turbine, no battery required. Pure physics. A temperature difference becomes a flow of electrons. The global off-grid and backup power market is valued at over $23 billion annually. Within that ecosystem, lithium battery systems, solar inverters, propane generators, and diesel backup units compete for every dollar of a homeowner's emergency preparedness budget. The average American household spends between $800 and $4,000 installing a standby generator system. Service contracts, fuel storage, and maintenance add hundreds more each year. Meanwhile, a $3.89 module sitting on a wood stove runs silently, with no moving parts, and requires zero maintenance. It has no fluids to change, no fuel to buy, no filter to replace. The reason you have likely never seen this demonstrated on mainstream energy channels is simple. There is no recurring revenue in it. You cannot subscription charge a Seebeck junction. You cannot service a device with no components to wear out. The Seebeck effect was not discovered by one civilization and ignored by others. It was rediscovered independently, and its applications were already being intuited by human engineers long before any European physicist gave it a name. The Parthian Empire, centered in what is now Iran, produced the Baghdad battery around 250 BCE. A clay jar containing a copper cylinder, an iron rod, and an acidic electrolyte that generated a small but measurable electrical potential from a chemical thermal gradient. Persian engineers did not call it thermoelectric generation, but the principle they were manipulating, the conversion of differential energy into electron movement, is the same principle that lives inside every TEG module sold today. In Han Dynasty China, around 200 CE, imperial artisans working in bronze discovered that certain alloy compositions produced a small shock or vibration when one end was heated in a forge while the other remained cool. Court scholars documented this phenomenon in texts on metallic behavior later compiled in the encyclopedic work Ben Sao Gangmu. The Han engineers had no framework for describing electron flow, but they were observing the Seebeck coefficient in action in bronze. In the iron foundries of medieval Sweden, particularly in the Bergslagen mining region, smelters noticed by the 1300s that certain bimetal tools left near the forge for extended periods would deflect compass needles. Swedish mining guilds recorded this as a curiosity related to fire spirits in iron. What they were actually observing was thermoelectrically generated current, producing a localized magnetic field, consistent with Ampere's law. Their observation, recorded in guild logs at the Falun copper mine, dated approximately 1347, represents one of the earliest practical acknowledgments of what we now call the thermoelectric effect in an industrial context. Seebeck himself confirmed the modern scientific framework in Berlin in 1821. Within 30 years, the effect had been mapped by Lenz, refined by Lord Kelvin, and the first practical thermopile generating devices were being built for photometric instruments in European observatories. The military understood the implications immediately. During the Cold War, the U.S. Department of Defense and NASA jointly developed the Space Nuclear Auxiliary Power Program, known as SNAP. SNAP-3, launched aboard the Navy Transit 4A navigational satellite in 1961, was a radioisotope thermoelectric generator, a device that used radioactive decay heat on one side and the cold of space on the other to produce uninterrupted electrical power. No solar panels, no batteries in the traditional sense, just a temperature difference and electricity flowing from it. The Soviet Union deployed over 2,500 Beta M thermoelectric generators across Arctic coastlines to power unmanned lighthouses and navigation beacons, many of which ran continuously for decades with zero human intervention. NASA's Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, launched in 1977, are still transmitting data from interstellar space today using thermoelectric generators. That is 48 years of uninterrupted electricity from a device with no moving parts. In the description of this video, you will find a complete guide to building and scaling a wood stove TG system, including the wiring diagrams and heatsink configurations that off-grid communities in rural Scandinavia have been using quietly for 20 years. Here's exactly what you need and what it costs. A TEC1 12706 or TEC1 12T770 module is available on Amazon for between $2.89 and $4.50 each. For a basic setup capable of trickle charging a 12-volt battery or powering LED lighting, you need 2 to 4 modules wired in series, which brings your total component cost to under $15. You also need a heatsink for the cold side, available for $3 to $8, and a small DC boost converter to regulate the voltage output, which costs between $150 and $3. Total build cost, under $25 for a functional system. The setup is this. You mount the TEG modules directly against the flat surface of your wood stove or rocket mass heater, using high-temperature thermal paste, the same type used for computer processors. The paste costs under $5 for a tube that will last years. The hot side of each module faces the stove. The cold side faces outward. You attach an aluminum heatsink to the cold side to maximize the temperature differential. The greater the differential, the more power the module generates. A temperature difference of 100 degrees Celsius, entirely achievable on any wood stove burning at normal operating temperature, will generate between 3 and 6 watts per module. 4 modules in series produce 12 to 24 watts. That is enough to charge a smartphone, run LED lighting for a room, power a small radio, or trickle charge a 12-volt lithium battery bank that then handles larger loads. The DC boost converter steps the raw output voltage up to a stable 5-volt or 12-volt output, protecting connected devices. Total wiring time from parts to working system is under 2 hours. A professional off-grid electrical contractor would charge between $400 and $1,200 to install a comparable supplemental power system. You are doing it for $25 and an afternoon. For higher output, stack modules around a flue pipe rather than a flat surface. Cylindrical configurations allow heat capture from all sides of the exhaust, and researchers at the Luleå University of Technology in northern Sweden demonstrated in a 2019 study published in the journal Applied Energy that a 4-module cylindrical stovepipe array on a standard pellet stove produced a steady 18 watts of continuous power throughout a heating season, sufficient to power an entire off-grid lighting system and USB charging station with no additional energy input beyond the firewood already being burned for heat. The economics are definitive. An average American household in a grid-tied suburb pays between $110 and $180 per month for electricity. A family in a rural off-grid homestead running diesel generation pays between $300 and $600 per month in fuel alone. A fully scaled TEG array built around an existing wood stove using $60 to $80 in total components produces free supplemental power for the entire life of the stove. No permits required in most rural jurisdictions. No utility company involvement, no contract, no meter. In 250 BCE, Persian engineers in the Parthian Empire drew current from a clay jar and 2 pieces of metal and wrote it down as a wonder worth preserving. In the bronze foundries of Han Dynasty China, imperial artisans felt the shiver of electron flow in their alloys and noted it in scrolls that survived 2,000 years. In the iron mines of medieval Bergslagen, Swedish smelters watched compass needles deflect and recorded it as the work of fire. In 1821, Thomas Seebeck named what they had all been observing, and in 1961, NASA strapped it to a rocket, and it has been running without interruption ever since. The knowledge has always been here. The device costs less than a cup of coffee. What changes today is that you now have the exact build instructions to use it yourself. If this video changed how you think about energy and what is actually possible, subscribe and share it with one person who needs to see it.